enough information to help you decide if UCI is the right school for you. Please feel free to type any questions you may have in the chat. We will be happy to answer them. I'm having a good time looking at the colleges that everyone is from all over California. I want to start by introducing myself along with my colleagues in the Engineering Advising Office. Next slide, please. Thank you. My name is Mitzi Orm. I'm one of the academic advisors here in the School of Engineering. I work with the mechanical engineering transfer students. So if you're in mechanical engineering, you'll be seeing a lot of me if you decide to come to school here at UCI. Next, I want to introduce Robin Jeffers. She is our director.
Oh, hold on. Oh, I am on video. Hi. Nice to meet you, and really looking forward to answering all your questions, and hopefully we'll see you in person in the fall.
Next, Christy King, our associate director.
I welcome everyone. As Mitzi said, my name is Christy. I work directly with our CSE, our civil and our environmental students. So should you choose to come to UCI, and I hope that you do, those majors, I will get a chance to work with you directly.
Next, we have Andrea.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea. I'll be working with the computer engineering students. Welcome.
And we have Ushma Patel.
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Ushma and I work with the biomedical pre-med and material science and engineering students, and I look forward to seeing you in the summer.
I believe I saw John Kaufman here. Maybe not. Well, I'll introduce John. John Kaufman is our office manager. So you'll be seeing a lot of him if you come into our office. Next is, sorry, working my way down the hall in our offices. Next is Maggie Anderson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Maggie, and I advise aerospace engineering.
And then we have Caesar.
Hello, everyone. I will be working with the electrical engineering students.
And lastly, we have Erica.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I work with the chemical engineering students.
I would now like to turn it back over to Caesar to start the presentation.
So I will be turning off my camera so I can just pay attention to the slides. So it's kind of general overview of what you can expect today. At the end, we are opening up to any questions you might have, but feel free to put them in the chat if you have any questions throughout. We'll also be finishing off with our transfer resource specialist, who is a current CSE transfer student, Nader Tut. He will be also kind of giving his perspective on his experience at UCI as a transfer student. So this is engineering by the numbers. So we kind of have quite a few undergraduate students. The numbers are coming in terms of how many applicants are accepting. So this will likely change by the end of summer. But one of the important things to point out here is that 2/3 of students participate in research with faculty. So all students will have the opportunity of being able to work with a faculty member at some point if you choose. It's not required, but it's always a good opportunity. So. Again, this is also some numbers that will likely change once deadlines pass, but as you can see, here is a breakdown of all the 11 majors that we have on campus. We do have a breakdown a little bit later on what they are, but of course, the biggest major you see on here is mechanical engineering in terms of total amount of undergraduate students. So that includes students that start off as first year students and transfer students. So why UCI? Because you can take a picture next to an anteater. But really it's a couple of things. So teaching approach, a lot of the lower division courses are large courses. Large courses. However, most of you will be starting with a good amount of upper division courses and some lower division courses. As you progress through your upper division courses, you will see a smaller amount of lecture halls, which will allow and give you the opportunity to have more interactive sessions with faculty members, with your peers, and also this will help with projects that some of the courses in your major allow you to participate in. There is a year-long SEER design course for all of the engineering majors. So typically most majors during their last year, they'll be working on their SEER design project where you work with faculty, you work in a team, and some projects can be anywhere from steel bridge to something that the professor approves that is within your specific area of interest. So again, this will depend on your major, but you can start looking into these as soon as you start school. But again, you'll likely be doing this during your last year. And as mentioned earlier, you will have the opportunity of working with faculty in some research opportunities, but also the smaller classes do allow you to interact with them in a more personal basis because this classes are just so much smaller. So we do encourage you to do that. If you are interested in graduate school or just letter of recommendations in the future, this is a good opportunity for you to really develop good professional relationships with faculty that can write them for you as you make your way through your program. And again, there is a blend of research and hands-on experience, so you kind of get the best of both worlds as you make progress through your degree. There are many research opportunities and companies that surround Irvine, so there are good opportunities for you to join, apply for internships, or work after UCI. It's just a matter of you looking for them. And we do have Research Park. We have a lot of these local companies also within 10, 15 miles, probably a little bit more sometimes, but there are a good amount of companies that would hire UCI students because of how great they are. If you do participate in research, you will have the opportunity of having that count towards your degree through a course known as Independent Study 199. So it would count towards units, it would count for a letter grade, and it could apply for your degree. So if you are interested in that, there's also SEER design presentations that there are some SEER design presentations that you can be a part of as well to showcase everything you've been worked on throughout the year. And there are competitions as well. You do have the opportunity of also going through UROP, which will give you the opportunity of having your research funded, write a thesis, and also be part of this annual symposium that you can be a part of along with your faculty member. Here's one example of, it's not loading properly, but here's an example of a design competition that some of our students have participated in. If you quickly Google this, design, build, fly, students have designed, built, and flown an airplane in competition with other institutions across the state and country. Not sure why that's so blurry today. Other competitions include HyperExcite. So it's a conceptual Hyperloop that is funded by Elon Musk's company. So this has been a very good opportunity for a lot of students, both within mechanical engineering, but also outside of that specific major. And there's a lot of opportunities for you to join projects that are outside of your major or within your major. And if you catch it, there's a Photoshop anteater here. And now I will pass it off to Erica.
Thank you, Caesar. All right, over the next few slides, I'm going to be going over different departments and resources that are available to our students. So the first one that we're going to start with is the Office of Access and Inclusion, also known as OAI. They do provide academic support throughout the year for students. They have mentoring programs. The mentors are actually graduate students who completed their undergrad in engineering at UCI. So these are students who have been in your shoes. They have academic and career skills workshops, internship and job shadowing opportunities, and they also host yearly an industry and alumni networking social, which features resume reviews, mock interviews, and Q&As from industry professionals. Next slide, please. FabWorks is a joint venture between the Somali School of Engineering and Cal IT2. Now, this is a great way for students to get hands-on experience. Students, faculty in our community can design and fabricate pretty much anything. Now, FabWorks provides access to a host of machines, including 3D printers, scanners, milling machines, laser cutters, and industrial sewing machines. Not only do they provide access to these wonderful equipment, they also have staff ready to offer training and also design help. Next slide. We have many different departments and resources on campus and virtually. Here we just wanted to highlight a few of the departments. So we're going to start with the Counseling Center. Now, the Counseling Center is available to UCI students with a wide range of mental health services. They offer crisis support and resources for managing stress and assessing wellness. We have the Disability Services Center, which provides a culture of inclusion and equal opportunities for students with disabilities. Our Division of Career Pathways helps with the exploration of careers. They have workshops on resume and cover letters. They have career fairs throughout the year, and they can also provide tips for interviewing. Now, not only can they provide help with internships and job searches, if anyone's interested in grad school, this is also a great place to start. They can assist you with that as well. Our Fresh Hub offers students access to a food and toiletry pantry. They also have social worker consultations and life skills workshops. We have our Student Success Initiatives. They do offer peer mentoring. They have student study space, a book loan program, discounting printing, and they also have Chromebook loaning for those who need it. And last but not least, we have our Transfer Student Hub. So they host workshops throughout the year specifically for transfer students. So this is a really great way to network with your peers as well as build a sense of community. Next slide. All right, connecting with industry. So we kind of went over different departments that offer internships and job shadowing opportunities. These are other ways to get involved as well. So we have Handshake, which is a job internship search tool. We also have internship fairs every single quarter. In October, we host a big STEM career fair. And then in February, we have an engineering tech fair. So throughout these various career fairs throughout the academic year, we really encourage students to participate early on. So as early as October, we encourage you to get involved and just see what's out there. Next slide. So here we have a picture of our surrounding area. We love Irvine. It's a very safe city to be in. We have many local beaches for those of you who love the beach. We have Newport Beach, Corona Del Mar, Huntington Beach, Crystal Cove, just to name a few. We also have a lot of indoor and outdoor shops. We have a picture there of South Coast Plaza, which is one of the largest indoor malls. And then if we go to the next slide, we have the Irvine Spectrum, which is an outdoor mall. So the Irvine Spectrum is one of the nation's premier high-tech industrial and commercial business parks. It's comprised of over 5,000 acres, and it's home to more than 2,600 businesses employing in excess of 55,000 people. And it's basically right in our backyard. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mitzi, who will go over the next few slides.
Thank you, Erica. Before I present my part of the presentation, I want to remind students, don't be shy. We want to answer all your questions that you have, even if we wait till the very end with the question and answer portion. We want to make sure that you leave with all your questions answered about UCI. So don't hesitate to put your questions in the chat and we'll be happy to answer those. A common question that we get for incoming transfer students is how long is it going to take to graduate? In general, it takes transfer students 9 quarters to graduate. Chemical engineering requires all 9 quarters to complete their major requirements. Some majors and some students may graduate a little earlier. It really depends on what you come in with completed and what your major is. There are some benefits, though, for staying for 3 complete years. Many students want to get involved in an internship, and if you stay 3 years, you can use the summer or even the school year to get involved in an internship or more than one internship or a part-time job in your field. A lot of students want to do research, so this allows you time to do research with a professor, as well as get involved in some clubs and activities on campus. And lastly, it gives you a chance to take your time and really do well in the courses, not rush through the program. Next slide, please. Double major. This is another common question that we get from transfer students. A lot of students are interested in pursuing a double major. For example, if you're a mechanical major, a lot of students want to add that aerospace major or vice versa. Transfer students may apply to double major after completion of 2 quarters at UCI and if they meet the double major criteria. The criteria to double major is you need at least a 3.0 engineering GPA from UCI, and you must be able to complete both the requirements for both the majors within the 3 years that you are allowed at UCI. So the petitions to add a second major, a double major, they're reviewed on a case-by-case basis, but we won't allow a double like during the summer right when you start. You would have to be here for at least 2 quarters, but as long as you meet the criteria, more than likely your request would be approved. Next slide, please. Laptops. Engineering students are required to have access to a laptop. Some software and support is provided to students. Financial assistance is offered by the financial aid department, and I encourage students that want additional information to look at the website laptops.eng.uci.edu. There's lots of information on there regarding laptops and what you should buy or what you're going to need for each particular major. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier, one of the benefits for staying 3 years, or even if you want to graduate earlier, we encourage all students to get involved. And one way to get involved is to join an organization on campus, a student club. And this list on this slide gives you a partial list of some of the clubs that we have: Engineering Student Council, Engineering Ambassadors, Engineers Without Borders, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, Biomedical Engineering Society, and so on. There's many clubs on campus. There's a club for everyone's interest. I encourage you once again to check out campusorgs.uci.edu. Next slide, please. Lastly, we would love if you followed us on social media. It's a way for you to kind of see what we're doing, what our students are involved in, the type of workshops that we're having, the events that we hold on campus. You can find us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. And if you could use the hashtags, that would be great. Next slide, please. I'm now going to turn it over to Nader Atut. He's our transfer resource specialist, and he's going to give you a lot of great information from his perspective as a current transfer student.
Thank you so much, Mitzi. This is me. Hi, I'm Nader. Nader Atut. I'm the transfer resource specialist. So the guy that kind of knows a lot of resources in regards to helping out transfers with a smooth transition into UCI, as well as trying to, keep that momentum and that flow going all throughout. I'm currently a 4th year transfer student. So I did in fact transfer in, as some of you may have heard earlier, El Camino transfer. I'm also a 4th year, so this is my last year here, unfortunately. I love this campus a lot. And I'm also a CSE major, so computer guy right here. I also, as a student who was able to get here before a lot of the unfortunate pandemic stuff happened, I did actually get to live on campus for a short while. So if you guys had any questions about like how living on campus is or what campus is like, I can for sure answer those questions. Also, as a 4th year and about to finish up, I also participated in senior design, which was mentioned earlier. So if you guys are curious about what that entails, or basically what senior design is like or how to prep for it, I can also answer those questions. Also, I'm also part of the honors program here, or the campus-wide honors collegium, as they call it. So if any of y'all are coming in, as a tag or transferring into honors, I sort of have experience in there as well that I can help answer questions with, especially if you guys are, whether you're in honors or not, trying to do research or interested in getting involved in research. I also am currently doing and finishing up my research here at UCI as well. Could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, and just kind of going over a few more things that I've done as the transfer resource specialist, some of the things you can expect from future transfer resource specialists as well. Often we hold things like transfer workshops. So these would be often workshops about important resources here on campus that could help out transfer students, almost especially transfer students, like that screenshot on the left over there. That is actually from a workshop we held last quarter about how to prep for things like postgraduate studies or your professional career as a transfer student. Because as some of you may know, a lot of us, we don't have as much time as some people that came in directly from high school. So there's definitely a few milestones that I need to cover very quickly. I also hold transfer hours weekly. So basically every week I have this sort of like office hour of some kind, where for 1 hour a day, I'm just kind of around hanging out, answering any questions that you guys might have or may ask. And also from time to time, we hold transfer game nights where we just invite fellow transfer students and we just play games like card games through virtual tabletops, or earlier we played Among Us. I know that one's a bit of a hot topic from time to time, but yeah, we have those really fun game nights every now and then as well. So actually, that's most of the sort of big information I wanted to throw out there right now. This segment is also kind of a Q&A session in a way. So if y'all had any questions right off the bat, based on what you've heard already, or if there's anything just kind of bubbling that you wanted to ask as well, I'm here to answer. So ask away.
Nader, we do have one question that I think is fantastic. What's one piece of advice you would offer to incoming transfer students?
Ooh, okay. A lot of advice that I would give. But in terms of something that I think would be really relevant right off the bat, is definitely be very cognizant of how UCI's sort of style and system might be a little different from community college. For example, my community college I went to, El Camino, we worked on like a semester system, and we also worked on a letter grade system that didn't do like plus or minus. So there was no A plus A minus, it was just A, for example. And I know that kind of threw me off a lot when I came here, because here we were on a quarter system, so you have a lot less time per class, for example. And also they run on like A plus B minus, that kind of stuff. So definitely, me trying to be like big brain and calculating like my grades way ahead of time, being like, am I safe? Am I not safe? All that, it kind of was really throwing me off a lot. And also having less time per class every quarter, because quarters were shorter, was also kind of took a bit of adjusting to really get the hang of. So I want y'all to be aware of that things might be a little different from your community college in terms of pacing, speed, what responsibilities you might have as a transfer student as well. So keep those in mind, and yeah. Let me see. Another question, is it difficult to transfer between engineering majors? So this is a bit of an interesting question. So as a transfer student, a lot of the time, you're often expected to kind of know what it is that you want to major in. So for example, if I came in as CSE and I wanted to change major, it might be a little tricky. I think actually Christy might have a little more information on that specifically.
Yes. So we do have some majors that are currently closed for changes of major. So it really would depend on the major you were admitted as and what you are hoping to change to. So it really is something that we would need to work with you individually on. Like Nader said, to this point, you likely have, in the general sense, likely have prepared for a specific major. So you've taken the courses required for that. Let's say you're a CSE major, you took a lot of programming classes, so changing to something like civil engineering may be a little tricky, just because you didn't take the courses that would prepare you for that. So if you were interested in a major that was not closed to changes of major, then we can work with you individually as far as that is concerned.
Thank you so much. We have another question here. What was the timeline like for senior design? Okay, so the way that senior design, at least in my experience, has been, is that it'll usually start in your last fall quarter. And I think it almost always has to start during a fall quarter. And the way that kind of works is it goes over 2 quarters, basically. If any of you are playing with like WebReg later on, which is how you sign up for classes, you'll see it as like A and B. Usually with senior design, there'll be 1 quarter, and that's sort of the, I don't know if I call it like the setup, but it's sort of getting a prototype or like really simple demonstration version of your project. And the second quarter is all about basically the sprint to the finish, trying to get that project to be a much more demoable, much more complete version of what you had originally envisioned. But even though senior design would start in, whatever fall quarter you take it in, that doesn't mean that that's exclusively when you should start thinking about it. Senior design is a team sort of effort. At the end of the day, you have to be in teams. So it's definitely going to need a lot of planning and consideration ahead of time with who you want to be on your team or how you want to build your team, as well as what kind of like project idea you have in mind. I would say probably as early as, maybe like the spring quarter before. So yeah, it definitely needs a little setup, but once you start in fall, it's a 2-quarter process.
For our EECS students, some of our majors actually do our EECS, which is electrical engineering, computer science. Some of our majors actually do have 3-quarter long projects, so they will be fall, winter, spring. That would be chemical, MSE, civil, environmental, BME. That might be it. But like Nader said, you really want to begin that preparation, probably meaning begin the process of thinking about it spring quarter of your year, I guess we'll say junior year, but the time before, the spring before fall of your last year. And we help you. There are lots of resources available to help students transition into their project course.
Oh, I was just going to say, a student had a question regarding research. How competitive is research, and can you speak on your research here?
For sure. Just one quick note before I answer that though. If you have Discord, that is going to come very much in handy when you're doing a lot of different things here on campus. So if you have Discord or you know what it is but don't have it yet, I would recommend getting one. It'll help out. Okay, now to answer the other question about how competitive research is. So research is, how should I say this? Well, for starters, if any of you are CHC students, so like honors transfer students, then you kind of have to do it. But for most others, it's not like 100% mandatory, but it is something really interesting because you will learn a lot about something you probably are interested in but don't know much about. And so it's a really interesting learning experience. In terms of how competitive that is, what I would say is that when you are sort of interviewing with faculty members, because usually when you want to do research, you have to have a UCI faculty member, a professor, usually like a tenured professor, that you do research with. And usually, at least in my experience, professors tend to be really interested in taking on students. If I'm understanding what you mean by competitive, like how easy it is to be involved in research. I've found that it's not a brutal process, but if there are, for example, if there's like a really popular professor, then you want to be sure that you bring your A game when you're interviewing with them or you're interacting with them. But for sure, if you want to maximize your chances of getting involved with a faculty advisor for research, I would definitely say do a lot of homework on which faculty advisors you're looking into, so which professors that you want to do your research with, and kind of come to a, like make some kind of list, not just one or two, probably a lot longer than that, of professors that are interested in something that you are also very much interested in and are very open to learning a lot more about. And that will probably maximize your chances. But I haven't found it to be too brutally difficult to get involved, if that's what I'm understanding from the question.
How hard was it getting the classes you wanted the first year you transferred?
So I remember this might be a little biased, but I know that if you are a CHC student, you do get a little bit of priority, extra priority. But in general, I found that usually the intro level courses, so like the lower division classes that a lot of new students are going to be taking, and even some students that are already here, those ones might be a little, they might fill up a little bit faster. But for sure, as you're here at UCI, as the years go by, it does get a lot easier to get into classes. You'll notice they don't fill up as fast in terms of like the upper division stuff. But in lower division, even though it does fill up really fast, I feel like as long as you're pretty prompt about it, you don't wait until like literally the start of the next quarter to sign up, I think you're probably going to be in good shape for signing up for classes.
There was a question that I'm going to quickly answer about CSEs graduating in 2 years. The short answer is yes, it's definitely possible. The long involved answer is it really depends on the courses that you transfer in. So it definitely is an individualized plan of study that will determine whether or not a student is able to graduate in 2 versus 3 years. Most CSE will do, it definitely can do 2 years and 2 quarters. You wouldn't have to do that final quarter since senior design does end in winter quarter, but it would be, it's very individual as far as whether or not it's 2 versus 3 years.
Actually, I really wanted to also kind of piggyback off of that a little bit. For example, I'm one of the people that's actually taking a really interesting sort of graduation time. Rather than it being in explicitly 2 years or 3 years, it's kind of like 2 and like an extra quarter. So that's also something that's definitely very possible. It might be a little dense in terms of like your quarter workload, but it is definitely, if you put your all into it, it's again, it's not super brutal. You could, and of course, as mentioned earlier, if you have a lot of classes that transfer over, that definitely helps a lot. Okay. So there's another question here that says, how hard is it to get into research during the first quarter after transfer? and particularly like the rocket project Formula Car. So here's the thing with getting involved in research. As I said earlier, you kind of need to do your homework on like exactly which faculty advisor would probably be the best to work with for you and what you're interested in. I would say first quarter, like right after transferring, might not be the easiest. And part of the reason I say that is when I applied kind of late to get involved with research. It was like really late in the spring quarter when I got in touch with my faculty advisor and you know, worked some stuff out. But one thing that really kind of showed up a lot when I was interviewing with my faculty advisor was he was asking me like, oh, did you take this class? Oh, did you take this class? Like he was asking me about a lot of different classes that were not available, or at least I didn't take at my community college, but were classes that I had taken at UCI, and they weren't really like first or second quarter stuff. It was something like, you know, really recent, like I had just taken the classes. So it's definitely not impossible, but it might be a little trickier because a lot of times faculty advisors, they really want to know like what your experience level is and how, you know, what you know basically. So if you don't have many UCI classes under the belt, it might be a lot harder for them to kind of gauge exactly what your knowledge level is. But the reason I say it's not impossible is because if you're able to communicate, you know, your experience level a lot better, and you know, if you have like really awesome experiences from before that would contribute to whatever you're doing research in, and you know, communicate that over, that could help you out a lot as well. So it's definitely just a little harder, I feel, but it's, again, not impossible. Next question, what's the difference between a second bachelor's and double major? I feel like this might be a better question for Christy, but
Yeah, Robin actually answered that in the chat, but just in a very quick sense, second bac is for a degree program that is offered for students who have already earned a bachelor's degree in a non-STEM major, whereas a double major is, you know, you receive 2 degrees at the same time.
thank you.
Sure. Let's see, there was a question.
So there's a question. Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm not sure where you are on the list, but
That's the quantum computing question.
that's where I was. Go for it.
So someone said that they know that there's a quantum computing class at UCI, but wanted to know if there are any research projects or labs specifically in that field, and whether, and if you wanted to participate in that, would you have to bring this up with the UROP? So specifically, the quantum computing class, I'm not 100% sure. I have not taken that class. And my research is not so much about quantum computing, it's more about machine learning. So I don't 100% know how that's doing here at UCI. I know that my personal preference is I'm really into like software design, and I'm really interested in AI. So that's sort of the rabbit hole I went down. So I would definitely say probably take a little more time to like truly research it more deeply and see what professors are involved in that. I know with the UCI, 100% sure if it's the UCI directory, but there is, if you dig around a little bit on the UCI website, you can look through the directory of professors and see what topics they're researching. That could probably be a really good place to start if you're curious about that. And in terms of whether you would have to bring it up with UROP to participate, remember when usually UROP likes to meet with you at some point to just kind of see what you know and try to let you know about what UROP does and what's going on with UROP and research in general. But I don't remember having to, I don't think I had to go through UROP to be involved in research. I actually like directly got in touch with the professor that was overseeing that kind of stuff and was doing that kind of research. And I got in touch with them personally, like through email communication, and interviewed with them when I was getting involved in my research. So that I don't think it's like mandatory to have to go through UROP. Someone else.
Okay, I am going to go a little backwards on question here. It was getting involved in research in the first quarter, and then discussing, then Also mentioned UCI's rocket project, race car. Those are actual projects, not research. So those are two separate things. It's possible for students to get involved with the projects. Their first quarter, depending on where you are, you would potentially enroll in a lower division course to be involved until you reach upper division status. But it's possible to get involved with those different projects. And I'm done now.
Another question, is it more common that we find a professor working on research, or is it more common that we have our own research ideas? I honestly think it's kind of like 50-50 in a way. There are some professors I've met that are, I mean, all professors I've met so far, or at least interviewed with when I was getting involved in research, they're all doing their own projects. But when I got in touch with my faculty advisor, I told him, hey, you know, I'm really interested in machine learning and optimization. I'm wondering, like, if you knew, like, where would be a good place to start, what I should look into, where I could basically set myself up to be involved in research. And through our discussion, we basically came to, you know, this decision in the end that, like, oh, you know, I should sort of have my own research and have him be sort of like my advisor, kind of advising me on it. So I would say it definitely depends on the advisor. If you have like a really strong research idea, like you want to research something and you're really, really interested in researching it, that might not like 100% line up with what project that professor is working on. It doesn't mean they're not going to take you on. They would likely take on sort of like the advisor role, right? They'll guide you and sort of push you in the right direction in terms of doing your own research and monitor you as you kind of go along. All right. There's another question that says, for senior design, do you arrange your own teams, or does the school mandatorily give you that opportunity? So I can speak for my experience on like EECS at least. For EECS on our end, what we ended up doing was they actually let us pick our own teams. They were like, okay, you know, they gave us like a few guidelines, like teams have to be between like 3 and 5 people, you know, ideally have 1 person of each major, that kind of stuff. But they ultimately let us kind of come to the decision of who we wanted in our team or not. But I think it is different for some majors, right? Like for some majors, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if you'd know, Christy.
Well, I do know
Anyone else?
for environmental, they form their own groups. For MAE majors or mechanical specifically, if they're doing one of the MAE projects, some of them you actually have to apply and go through an interview process to be part of those groups. That's not for all of them, that's just for some of them. And then for BME Chemical and MSc, I'll let the advisors for those majors speak to that.
Yeah.
Well, for the BME and material science, they do hold their own groups, but it depends on the project that they want to work for.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any additional sort of guidances about different senior design things? Well, if not, then I could probably move on to the next question. So the next question says, what resources are there to know? What courses are required for your engineering major? Well, for sure, number one, get in touch with your advisor. They'll know exactly which classes you probably have to do and fulfill in order to graduate on time, and what is required. But one, definitely use DegreeWorks, I would say. DegreeWorks kind of lays out what things you need to have, at least what's required to complete before you graduate.
Yeah, over the summer during orientation, we will be going over the different requirements over the summer during orientation, and also provide you guidance on what you still need to take, all the different courses that you have credit for based off of your community college credit. So all the different resources we'll be reviewing during orientation. So once you SIR, a little bit after that, weeks after that, we'll be emailing you on how to participate in those so that you can know exactly what courses you need to take in the fall and also what courses you still have left to take.
Awesome. Thanks, Caesar. Let's see. I'm like way behind in chat.
Well, there are a lot of answers already in there, so you kind of have to weed through it all. There have been a lot of questions about receiving a plan of study. Having your transfer coursework evaluated prior to advising. I do want to let everybody know that our advising for incoming transfer students begins mid-June and ends mid-July. So we have several sessions that are offered that you will be able to choose from. And during that academic advising session, you will receive an individualized plan of study based on the courses that you've transferred that we have evaluated. And you'll get at least a quarter, maybe 2 or 3, depending on your major and what makes the most sense. So we are not currently providing that information to students, but we will be doing that during the academic advising. TSPOP is required for transfer students. That is done through the main campus, through the Student Life and Leadership Program. And yes, it is required. And then academic advising is separate from that. So you will receive information from us directly, giving you the links to register for our sessions, where we will provide you some very detailed information about the School of Engineering and give you, again, an individualized plan of study. You'll meet in small groups. So you'll have a little bit more of one-on-one, or maybe we did do one-on-one for transfer students. I don't actually remember. Somebody chime in on that.
For the early orientation from like a couple years ago.
Well, yeah, we definitely did more one-on-one there, but or a little bit easier in person, but we did group with transfers, right, Mitzi?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little.
Thank you.
So as Christy mentioned, there'll be 2 parts to the orientation this summer that you'll need to complete. It does get a little bit confusing for students. At the beginning, you're going to be receiving a letter from our department, the engineering department, within the first 2 weeks of June, hopefully the first week of June, with detailed information on how to sign up for the mandatory engineering advising session. That's where we're going to evaluate your transcripts. And as Christy said, give you your schedule for fall and perhaps for winter and spring also, and go over information that's just for engineering students. And there'll be a piece of that advising where you'll be able to meet with an advisor. It won't be a one-on-one appointment, but it'll be broken out by your major. So typically it's a small group of students and you'll be able to meet with your counselor to get your questions answered. And then the second part of your mandatory advising will be the TSPOP, and that's put on through the Student Life Department, and it'll have a different component to it. So they're both a little bit different, but together you should get the full experience as an incoming transfer student. Hopefully that answered it.
And for those of you who are not transferring from a California community college and are not able to use the ASSIST website in order to determine course equivalencies, we will be asking you to submit course syllabi in order to get those reviewed. So from other UCs, from out of state, and we do that prior to your advising session.
Yeah, we'll actually be asking you for both documentation for both out-of-state and in-state students at the time of registration for the advising session. And just to separate, so advising will be before the end of July, I believe, and then TSPOP is in August. So you'll get information about the advising sessions regarding courses to register for way before you get information from TSPOP. So keep an eye out for emails regarding advising.
Nader, there was a question that I think was for you. Which quarter did you find most difficult and why? Was it the workload? Was it
I was
the
also looking at that question. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the most difficult quarter, I feel like as you kind of go further and further into upper divs, they do get a little, I don't know if tougher is the right word, because it's not that the material just got like super duper hard out of nowhere or anything like that. It was more of, sort of as mentioned, it was more of like a workload thing. For me, I think probably the most intense quarter was for sure actually winter quarter that just passed this year. Because at that point I was doing like 3 upper divs and like senior design and research at the same time. And like my research project and the sort of end state, as I mentioned, because like senior design is like 2 quarters, at least for us on EECS. That second quarter where it was like the final push to get a complete product, that was week to week pretty intense. So I would definitely say that I found the later quarters to definitely be the toughest, and out of the later quarters, just the one that had just passed, I would say was the toughest, mostly from like a workload perspective. There's just a lot to do and not as much time as I would have liked.
Just looking through the questions here.
Yeah, same here.
You guys are asking some really great questions. Thank you.
And going off of Erica's message about SIRing and UCI email. So once you SIR, you will be able to activate UCI Net ID. Put it in the chat. Once you do that, that would give you access to your email address. You'll use that login, pretty much sign into all of that. I believe. And put in the other steps for email activation, but I believe it's the same steps. Yeah, it's the same steps. So that newest link in the chat would be the link you follow to activate your UCI Net ID. So you can have access to your UCI email.
So I want to double check. I don't know if this question was covered, so I just want to throw that out there. But there's a question about assist. If a course doesn't correlate, if a course taken does not correlate with something on assist, but you feel like you've fulfilled the requirement, is it possible to petition for that class being cleared?
Yes. What we will need is a course syllabus, and we will submit it to our faculty for review. And if they determine that it is equivalent, yay. If they say no, then no. But yes, definitely you would be able to do that.
Thank you for that. There's another question as well that just came up. Where can we find upcoming presentations like this and the recording for this one? I'm not 1000% sure which exact page this recording will go to, but generally speaking, if you want to look at some of the older workshops that we've done, like, over the past few quarters, especially like the transfer focused ones. Let me see if I can share this link. So that would be on the undergraduate engineering website. So I'm gonna link that right here. Just one moment. Okay,
I just linked it.
Oh, you did? Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, if you head over to the undergraduate website, there's a bunch of little tabs sort of divided based on different resources, whether that's for prospective students, in terms of advising, degree info. There's actually a tab towards the end which says transfers. That's, at least in terms of some of the transfer resource specialist workshops, like the super transfer focused ones, they would mostly be under the transfers tab. There's a few over there right now if y'all wanted to check that out at some point. I also want to share this link if it's all right. Some of the recordings, there's also a duplicate of them, or I guess the original, not so much the duplicate, that are posted to YouTube as well on the Transfer Engineer YouTube channel. So let me go get that link as well. This should take you to some videos that are already posted already. So usually whenever you know, a workshop gets hosted, we try to record it as well because sometimes people can't make it, and we want to make sure that, you know, everyone can get some of the information. So you'll find usually recordings of the workshops on there as well. There's another question about having to take like first or second year classes as a transfer student, as opposed to just third or fourth year classes. So that I think it kind of depends on what classes you transfer in with and what does transfer over. I know for a fact that there was a couple classes I took at my community college that unfortunately did not transfer over, and they were like pretty early on. So I had to retake sort of equivalent classes to them. And they were, I think, somewhere around that area. So yeah, like first or second year. So it kind of depends on what classes you transfer in with. Could you confirm that one, Christy?
Yes, what are you doing? Swiss.
Yes. It really does depend on how your courses transfer over and your major. CSE just happens to be one of those where there are not a lot of courses that articulates directly to the lower division course requirement. Not to scare you off, we make it work. We figure it out. So it really would depend on what you've completed to this point and how it directly corresponds to courses required at UCI. But yeah, in general, yes, what Nader said.
Thank you.